Okay, we are on Daf Kuf Yud Beis Amir Beis. We are, 2, 4, 6, 8. Is that 10 lines down from the top? Shloisha HaKadosh Baruch Hu Oyhavan. There are 3 that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves. And what are they? Misha Enekayis, someone who doesn't get angry. Misha Enemishtaker, someone who doesn't get drunk. Misha Enemaimid Amidaisav, someone who doesn't stand on his principles, I guess, or more his midas. Means he lets things go. These are 3 that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Oyavan. He brings down the morale, explains that these are people that are less connected to Gashmias. I think the Indian is, if I may, that the Yesod, the Midara, the Yesod of all Midas Rice is Gaiva. That's the Yesod of all the other Midas Rice, and that's what we spoke about yesterday a little bit. This idea of being self-centered, of being a yesh, of being I'm something and there's nothing else. Aniva Afsi Oid, it's just me. That brings to all the Midas Rice. So that's the Indian of Kas. That's where Kas comes from. And then if you get drunk, you lose your faculties and you act like a behemoth. There's nothing to you. And if you are, if you're in Maimed Al Midaisav, someone is Bakar, someone who is Maimed Al Midaisav. If you're not Maimed Al Midaisav, so that means you're egocentric, basically. It's all about you. So people who don't have these midas, they have good things. Interesting, it doesn't say like in the positive way. You don't have to get upset, and then Akash Baruch Hu, I would, if you're an Anav, if you had the Mailas Tavis, doesn't say that. So that's interesting. Just as Misha Einai, it's like even if you haven't acquired the midah of Anava, right, which is the opposite of Kasas Ruach, even if you don't get it, as long as you're working on that, maybe that's Indian. Okay, Shloish Akash Baruch Hu Sainan. You got 3 Akash Baruch Hu hates. Strong word. Hamadaber Echad B'Pev Echad B'Leiv. Someone who speaks one way and is thinking something else. You're not sincere. One who knows the edus about somebody else, you don't testify on his behalf. Now, when it comes to edus of ritzicha on a capital punishment, so you have a chiv to testify, even if nobody asked you to. When it comes to mumminus, when it comes to monetary law, so it seems like there's a machlekes if you have an obligation to go testify, even if nobody asked you to go and testify on their behalf. Okay, and the third is haroyed dvar erva b'chaveroi. If you see umeir b'yechidi, you saw your friend do something wrong, immorally, and you go and you testify him, and you're only an eid echad, so it's pointless. If it's a davar shabbamamin, so an eid echad could be mechayev at least a shvua. But if it's a davar shabbarva, so your testimony is meaningless. So what are you doing? You're just shaming the guy. And the Gemara brings a great story. Ki had the tuvya chata. There was a story. There was a guy tuvya who did an avera. Va'asa zigud l'chudei. Zigud came by himself. Va'asid bey kamei der papa. He came and testified in front of Rav Papa that tuvya was chata. So what did Rav Papa do? Nagdei l'zigud. He gave zigud malchus. So Amar lei zigud says to Rav Papa, tuvya chata. Tuvya doesn't have avera. The zigud minget, and I get the malchus. Amar lei in. He said yes. The pasuk says la yakom eid echad beish. You can't be an eid echad. La yakom eid. We don't put an eid echad up against the person. Va'ad l'chudocha asid bey. And you came to testify by yourself. Shame Rabbi Alma kamafka sabay. You're just being mighty shame Rabbi about this guy. You're saying bad things about him. You get malchus for lashon hara. So what do you get malchus for? So Shbam says it's not this pasuk. The Chumash, the Gemara brought. What Rav Papa said to him was that you see from the Torah an eid echad is meaningless. But what do you get malchus for? Not for that. You get malchus for leiselach rachel ba'amecha, not speaking lashon hara. Now the emes la yakum. It could be it's a lav on bezin from accepting edus of one person. It doesn't seem like it's a lav on the person to speak. It's la yakum means you can't stand up eid echad to testify. That would be an isser on bezin. Doesn't sound like it. Again, maybe the Arisham maybe we should do say it is, but the Rashbam clearly says that the lav here, if you look at it, he says, what is Shemra? The Kamaf, Shemra, the third line down in the Rashbam. Shemra hu the Kamaf keseluyah. Me'acha shenata ne'aman ve'edus, being that no one's going to, your edus is not believed, le'yiskav le'duscha. So your edus is not accepted. Ein l'cha halacha mitzvah l'hayid. So you have no mitzvah to testify. Harayata over alav le'selech rachel. So you're transgressing the law of don't be a gossip monger amongst your people. So what's the Gemara bringing the pasuk of Yaakov Meidachad? It says Rashbam, the chsiv Yaakov Meidachad kalaymar hamikra made. The Torah testifies shiat nema be'edazu. The Torah says you're not believed, so you shouldn't come. But what lav are you transgressing? You're being over the lav of lashon hara of le'selech rachel. Now, why did he get malchus? Or Papa's not a Sanhedrin. Papa's not a in Papa's time there was no capital punishment. There was no you didn't get malchus. They didn't have kabbalitis like that. So it was called malchus mardus. The local magistrates, is that the word? The courts said they were allowed to give malchus if they felt like you were doing something wrong. But this was a malchus mardus.
It almost sounds like you didn't go to Beis Din to testify. It's like telling the Papa about it.
It could be. It could be. It could be. Yeah, I don't know. Could be it was a Papa and his Bezdin. I don't know if it. I don't know. That's a fair ha'ara. Okay. Now says the Gemara, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, Amar Rav, Mutter l'snaisai. Even though you're not allowed to testify about him, but you're allowed to hate him. Shneimar, like the Torah says. The pasuk gives you a halacha there that if you see your enemy's chamor and it's piled up, it's got a masa on it. Reivetz tachas masoi. So that's the scenario in the Torah, and it's called halacha of prika. There's a halacha of ti'ina and prika, loading up an animal and unloading an animal. So it says kisir chamar sinach reivetz tachas masoi. So you have an obligation to go help him out. So the shayla is, who are you hating? Who's seinacha? It sounds like it's a singular person that you hate. Who are you talking about? Says the Gemara. Shenemar. He said, my seine. Who's this guy that you hate? Ilema seine nachri is a guy. Tanya. We learned in a Bryce in that pasuk. Seine Amru. The seine that you were talking about, that is a seine Yisrael. Someone who's Jewish that you hate. V'lei seine nachri. Ela pshita, seine Yisrael. So we're talking about a guy who you hate amongst the Jewish people. Umisharya lemisane. Are you allowed to hate a Yid? The Torah says, you're not allowed to hate another Jew. You can't hate your brother in your heart. So you can't hate him. So who are we talking about? Ella, the Ika Sahade. So what must be the scenario? The Ika Sahade the Avri Surah. That there are witnesses that came to testify about this guy that he did an Isser, he did something wrong. So then you're allowed to hate him because he's not Achita anymore. If Edom testify about a person in Bezin that he didn't have Eros, you're allowed to hate him. So says the Gemara, if we're talking about a situation like that, then Kuli Alma Nami Misani Sanile. Then everybody should be hating this guy. Why does the pasuk say Seinacha? You hate the person that you hate. This is something that everybody should hate because he's a Russia.
Real evidence on it.
I'm sorry?
Only the Edom.
No, but they testified in Bezin. Bezin accepted the Edom, and there's a psak din. This guy did something wrong. That's the case. If there are two Edom that testified against this guy in Bezin, Bezin accepted his Edom. So this is somebody that Kuli Almanami by Nami Misani. Everybody's got to hate this guy. So Ma'ishnahai, why is it saying here Seinacha in the singular? Elalav. Oh, says Zimar. So what's the scenario? Yehai like this. The scenario was that you saw this guy do something wrong. It's only you who saw it. So you can't go to Bezin to testify. Nobody else is going to hate him, but you're allowed to hate him because you know what he did. So there's a Soinacha. That's the scenario. That's what the pasuk's talking about. So that's where Shmuel Bar Yitzchak got off saying that it's mutter l'sanaisai. You see such a halacha. Now we'll do one more, then we'll see the tases. So it says the Gemara, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar, mitzvah l'sanaisai. Not only is it mutter, but it's actually a mitzvah. Shenema, the pasuk says, Yiras Hashem S'nai Ra. People who fear Hashem hate evil. Interesting, I brought that pasuk, probably because the end of the pasuk talks about a yachid. Talks about the end of the pasuk. I don't have it on my comment, but the end of the pasuk is mevur. It's lashon yachid, so it's talking about a scenario where it's just you. Because I could have brought the pasuk we say in Kabbalah Shabbos of Oyvei Hashem S'nai Ra. So there's such an Indian to if you're Avos Hashem to hate evil. Now, what? Let's take a look at the top tases here. Let's just do one more Gemara. We'll finish up this Gemara. Says the Gemara, Amar of Acha Brei de Rav Ravashi, Ma'u lememri l'Rabbi l'Misani. Are you allowed to tell your his Rebbe? This guy's got a Rebbe. You saw him do it there. The Rebbe thinks this guy's a wonderful guy. You know that he's a Rasha. He's that it's Dvar Erva. So should you tell his Rebbe? So his Rebbe should. I would think you want the Rebbe can help him out, but you want to tell him his Rebbe l'Misani that the Rebbe should hate him. Amar lei, so he told them, interesting halacha. If this guy knows that this Rebbe trusts him like he would trust two Eidim in Bezdin, then lamely he could tell him. But if not, then you can't tell him because it's Lashon Hara. So that's an interesting halacha. If you know, there is a tayalis here involved. Tayalis is maybe his Rebbe can help him, or his Rebbe should he should know where this Talmud is at. Is halachi, maybe you can't teach the Talmud Sheinei Hagun. Is a tayalis in the Rebbe knowing where this Talmud is at. But you can only tell him if the Rebbe would trust him like he would trust two Eidim in Bezdin. And says Kibay doesn't mean like stam two people. It means that they bring down from Ramesh. Ramesh says that the Rebbe knows this guy never ever lied, and he has experience with him, and he knows that for years that this person never lied. Then the Rebbe could trust him, and he'd be able to tell him. Other than that, he can't say anything. Now, take a look at the top tases. Interesting tases. Shara by Dvar Avera. You saw a guy doing Avera, a Dvar Erva. Yim Taimar the Be'el Metzias Amrinan. There's a halacha there. If you're a person who you like needs help unloading his animal, and the person who you hate needs help loading his animal. Now, normally the halacha is prika, unloading an animal comes first because of Tsar Bali Chayim. So normally halacha would be that you should help somebody unload before helping a person load. But here the scenario is where the guy you like needs help unloading, and the guy you hate needs help loading. So here the halacha is a mitzvah b'soinei. There's a mitzvah to help the person who you hate, even though it's te'ina, it's not prika, it's loading, it's not unloading. You should still help him first. Kedei lokuf es yitzrei. In order that you should be kayif of your yetzer. You should do some internal work on this guy who you hate. You should work on yourself a little bit and therefore help him out, even though the other guy should come first, really. So what do you mean, lokuf es yitzrei? What do you like? What kind of work should you do? You're supposed to hate him. You're allowed to hate him. So what's this Gemara saying? Lokuf es yitzrei. You should work on your midas, and you shouldn't hate him so much. So you should help him out. What kind of narishkeit is that? It's a mitzvah l'snei. That says it's a kasha.
Maybe you didn't say properly.
No, but he's a sainate. It's not saying that you're not allowed to hate him. If you didn't see it properly, if you got it wrong, you got the episode wrong, then you're not allowed to hate him. But here you're allowed to hate him. So why are you being kind of a yitzrei? What kind of kvis yitzer is it here? Given the mitzvah l'snei, it's a mitzvah to hate him. That says it's kasha. So now, just to expand on the point you're making is that correct. You're only allowed to hate this person. Not some you saw him doing a very. It could be you had to give him asra. You had to make sure he wasn't a shaygeg. You had to make sure maybe you gave him techacha. You told him he can't do it. You saw him do it again. It could be this is after multiple occasions. It's not. They go through when you're exactly allowed to hate him. to the extent that the Chavetz Chaim and maybe the Chazon Ish brings down that nowadays, since nobody can give techacha because nobody knows how to give proper techacha, so you'll never be able to really, you'll never be able to, if you can't give techacha, so you'll never be able to really send to somebody. So, you don't have a din of, nobody has a din of Russia, even Tinik Shinishba, or people who you think should know better, they can't know better because you can't properly, so, enochanami. It could be, it's not halach l'maisa. But in the scenario, Teisus Kasha is a fair Kasha though. In a scenario where you're allowed to hate the guy, why is it there to say that? So look, you should help the guy do priya, te'ina, you should load up his animal, because they look of his yitzray. Why? Fuck it, mitzvah was nice. There's no kviyas yeshu here. You shouldn't try to think, make things better. Listen to Teisus Teretz. Kviyas leimar. Even shu saynai. Since you hate this guy, right? That's again, Shimon did an Aveira. Reuven saw Shimon doing an Aveira. So Reuven hates Shimon for doing an Aveira. He's a Russian. So Kilin Shu Seinai. Gam Chaveira Seinai Isai. Well, if Reuven hates Shimon, then Shimon's going to hate Reuven back because that's just the way it works. The pasuk says, "K'mayim apanim lepanim." Just like when you see your face in the reflection in the water, Kain leiv ha'adam la'adam. That's how people feel about each other. If you have good feelings for somebody, they'll have good feelings back towards you. And if you don't like the person, he'll pick up on that, and he won't like you either. Now, that guy, Shimon, has no heter to hate Reuven. Correct. He has no heter to hate Reuven. But if Reuven's going to hate Shimon, then Shimon's going to hate him back. Because Kamayim Panim upon him, can't lay about them aladim. Uban mi teichkach li sina gemura. And this will now cause a sina gemura, and that you have no heter for. What's sina gemura? This is an interesting one. If I'm not mistaken, I think my Rabbi Berkowitz says he uses the Balatine to explain Pshat in this Taisus. What's a sina gemura? A real hatred. So I think he's a different Taisus. That's why Shach Kviyas. So the guy won't know that you really hate him because you're helping him out. What's sina gemura? So he used the Balatani. He explains that even when you're hating, it's really the idea is that you have to hate actions. You can't hate people. Right? You have to hate actions. So what the guy's doing, you have to know it's completely wrong. Ayav Hashem sinu ra. Ayav Hashem sinu ra. He hates evil. You hate the evil, right? You have to love the person. You have to hate the evil. But over here, if you're going to start not helping the guy out because you hate him, so then he's going to start hating you, and that's going to turn into not just the sin on the ra, but on the sin of gemura. It's going to affect the person also. I think that's how he explains the sin of gemura.
The problem with sin is you can't hate Jews even if the Yid is doing something that's
correct. You can disagree ideologically. That's fine.
Shabbos or whatever, like the Yid.
That's right. You have to hate the act. You have to abhor Shabbos. You have to, but you have to have a love for Yidden. Values, ideology. You have to be strong on.
Yeah.
But it can't commonly they sin a gemura, and that's why it's shaykh kfiyah. It means even in a scenario. Again, it's not so pashut nowadays. You have a scenario you're allowed to hate mamish hate. But even if you did, you still take says it's shaykh kfiyas yetzer, so it should never chas v'shalom come to sin a gemura. Okay. Correct. I thought it's coming lafuke dvar mammon, because the mammon you're allowed to have be maimed in eid echad. That's what my idea was. Correct, but I'm saying I'm just picking up on the those in terms of edus, those are usually there's a davar sheba'erba and there's davar sheba'mammon. Eid echad is never by davar sheba'mammon and not by That's why I'm not sure on the diak. That's all. Okay. So we're back about 4 lines down towards the end of the line. No, we're not. We're further than that. We are up to Tan Rabbana. About 6 lines down. 2, 4, 6 lines down. First word of the line is Kabei. Middle of the line, Tan Rabbana, in the wide lines. Shloisha, 3 people, Chayen in Chaim. They are alive, they have no life. Harachmanin, people that have too much, Rashbam says, too much mercy. They're too much. Vaharatchanin, people that get angry too much, v'anine adas, and people that are too sensitive. V'amar Rabbi Yosef, kulu isnubi. I got all those problems. So why was Rabbi Yosef saying that? Either that people should daven for him. You have tsar, you got to daven for him. But the other pshat I like better is that Rabbi Yosef became a gadol Shabbat Yisrael with all these issues, or maybe not despite, maybe because he worked through all of these issues. He became Rabbi Yosef. Okay, tell me about him. Shloisha soinin zeh, three hate each other. Elohein aklavim, dogs, Tanagailin, okay, and Chavarian. They were Parsian. People came to came afterwards. Why do they hate each other? I don't know. I think they came to Para. What they say? They came to Persia after maybe the story of Purim.
Foreign people fight. Yeah, the Oracle says that the Persian priests were called Chabar.
Persian priests were called Chabarim. Why do they hate each other? Violent and destructive group. Okay? The Yeshemim, Apazainis. Others say it's also the Zainis because they're competing. The Yeshemim, Aftimina Chachamim. They would fight with rough words when they didn't agree with each other. They would use harsh terms. Yeah, it's rough. Yeah. As opposed to Yerushalmi, they were much softer with each other. That was interesting. Even the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva were in Eretz Yisrael, no? Okay, but that means Bavel, when they would fight and learning, they get which is a fine thing. But it got too personal. Maybe I'm not sure. Tell about them. The people that love each other because they all feel like they're in they're the minorities in the same boat. Elohein Hagerim v'Avodim v'Arvin. The Gerim, the slaves, and Arvin. What are Arvin? Crows. Why? People don't know one likes the crows.
Individuals, these groups also their perceived lowly status. They do not worry that their peers might be the threat to their positions and are therefore easygoing towards each other. Contrasted, furthermore, since the pyramid of societal status created the competition and jealousy. For this reason, it said there is no envy like the envy of kings.
Right. So the lower down you are in the status, what? Arvin, I guess in the bird kingdom, they're an Erev. I guess they're not very liked upon. They look like lowlights. I won't say more. Ain't a das. I don't know. But they always say they're the guy. You ever see that? You run for. I hate those things. Anyway, I was making a barbecue once, and it jumped down and took it right off the grill, piece of meat. Mamish, right off the grill. Ein hadas. Now Arba, there are four groups. Are ein hadas sevlasin. Nobody can stand these people. Elohein Dalgeya, a poor person who is haughty. Va'asher mechachish, a rich person who is he doesn't pay on time. He's stealing from people. He doesn't pay wages. He's got the money and he doesn't pay it. Zaken menayif, a zaken who's he's still meaning his kayach of taiva has diminished, but he's still being menayif. He's still committing adultery. Uparnis mizgal atzibur, a person who is in charge of a tzibur but takes advantage of it. Abachinam for no reason, meaning this is annoying. Uparnis mizgal atzibur ubachina, meaning he doesn't when people need him, he's not there to help them. But he puts he exerts his power over the people. But when people actually need him to do stuff for them, he's nowhere to be found. The Yeshayim Ava Magashis is someone who divorces his wife Pam Bishayna, Bishnia, Umachzira. He divorces her, marries her again. Divorces her, marries her again. Tanakama. Why did the Tanakama not count that one? He said Zimna the Ksubasa Meruba. Maybe the Ksuba goes too exorbitant for him. He couldn't pay the Ksuba, so he figured he might as well marry her again. Inami or Yeshlebaname, he's got kids, he wanted to be with his kids. So therefore he doesn't want to divorce her. All right. Chamisha dvarim tziva Kenan es banav. You want to hear what we're dealing with? 5 things Kenan commanded his children. Number 1, avuz hazeh, love each other, like we found before. The slaves they get along well. Number 2, avuz hagezel, thievery, steal. Ayves hazima, be what's the word? Immoral, sexually immoral. The sinu es adeinechem, hate your masters. The al tadaber emes, and don't speak the truth. All right, that's a legacy that Canaan left for his children. Wonderful. Yeah, I guess every MS, every sheker has a little MS to it, So I guess that's how he got them to listen, But it's amazing. People, what I found amazing about this is that we all assume that parents try to educate their kids to be good. That's what you would presume, right? You think that's why we, that's how we you look around at the world and you assume people are trying to make their kids good people, and it's not the case. It's not. It's
a lot of what they see. They might not be educated. They might tell the kid, be good.
It could be also, but I'm saying, but it could be not too. You know what I mean? That's it's hard to imagine, right? Sad to believe, right? It's sad to believe. It's sad to believe. Shisha dvarim nemarim besus. I don't know what the pshat in this Gemara is. 6 things are said about a horse. Ayves has nus. Alrighty. Ayves hamacham, he loves to fight wars. Veruach gasa, he's haughty. Umayis is Hashin, doesn't like to sleep. Eichel harbe, eats a little bit. Umayis kima, doesn't excrete much. V'yesh ayim af mevakesh laharig balav. He actually would like his master to get killed at war. There's 7 that are menuda. They're put in chayim from Shemayim. Elohim, these are they. Yehudi she'en le'isha. A Yid who does not married. Or yesh le'isha ve'en le'banim. He has the wife, but he's not Isaac and Puravu. He's not trying to have kids. Misha yesh le'banim. He does have kids. Ve'en megadol Talmud Torah. Doesn't send them to Talmud. Doesn't raise them in the way of Torah. Misha ein like tefillin, beroishe tefillin bezroye. Someone who has tefillin but doesn't wear them. The tzitzis bebig day doesn't have tzitzis on his clothing. Mezuzah bepischer, mezuzah on his doorpost. V'haminea minolim miraglav, and he doesn't wear shoes. That people think that Akash Baruch is not good to him. The yesh, I remember others say, Av misha'in meisiv bechabur shel mitzvah. Someone who doesn't join a chabur shel mitzvah. What's a chabur shel mitzvah? Rashbam says, Kigoin mishta shel bris milah, a bas koyin l'koyin. A suda's mitzvah, a suda of a bris milah, or a chasen shel mitzvah when it's a bas koyin to a koyin, a chashuv mitzvah, chabur shel mitzvah. So that's important to join. Top Taisus, look on Kuf Yidal and Aleph on this next page. Taisus has on this Ein Meisiv Besudas Mitzvah. Taisus says Hainu Sudas Mila. This is talking about a bris Mila. The Amr b'Medrash. Then the Nitzu Medina Shel Gehinnom. A person is saved from Medina Shel Gehinnom if he partakes in the Sudas Mila. The Sudas Nisum b'Talmid Chacham u'Bas Kayin, a marriage of a Talmid Chacham or a Bas Kayin l'Kayin. Dafka Sheyesham b'nei Adam Huganim. Now this is only if there's a proper atmosphere there. Because Amrim b'Zabayra. Niki Hadashi B'Shalayim la'hayu Mesubin b'Suda elam ken yodim imesiv imam. The Niki Hadashi B'Shalayim, they'd only go to a meal if they knew who else was invited, who else was sitting there. So it doesn't. If you don't have to give up on your values to stay at a Suda's mitzvah. If it's not an appropriate matzah to be in, Taisa says you don't have to stay. Okay. What happened? Could be. It could be, but if it's not a proper place to be, so then they don't go. Like it's true. It appears to be, and it could be it is. But if it's done for that, what does he say? Muganim. Bnei Adam Muganim. Okay, that's that could be. Amar Rav Barchana Amar Rav Yishmuel Bar Marta Amar Rav Mishum Rabbi Yossi Ish Hutzel Minayin She'in Shalom B'Koladayim. Where do you know you don't ask stargazers things? You're not looking for the future. That's not something you should do. Where do we know that? So right. It doesn't mean the Koladayim. The Rashbam first thought it meant the Balei Oiv. These guys who would bring up the dead. So, but you can't be that because that's a Mefurish Pasuk. So he says it's referring to stargazers. So how do you know? He says because the pasuk says, "Tamim tiyem Hashem alakecha." Be tamim with Hashem your God. That means just be b'teach, trust that Hakadosh Baruch Hu does you is good, and that happens. You don't have to be concerned about that. To look to the future. From where do you know that somebody who's, if you know about somebody that he has even one thing greater than you, the chayiv l'nei be'kavod, you have to give him kavod. Shenemar, you know where we know this from? We learn this from Daniel. Kol kabel de ruach yitei rebei, umalka asisis lehak mute al kol machusa. This is Kairesh. You saw about Daniel, that Daniel knew more than him. And he said, you're deserving of being put in charge of my entire kingdom. Just for somebody, because he knew something more than him. What I find interesting about this, I was, But Yesheves Adam Tar, Asura L'Shamish, a woman who was being Yesheves Adam Tar. The halacha is, after the birth of a boy, or the birth of a girl, so halacha is midiraisa, any dam she sees. Let's say for a girl, for a boy, you have 7 days she's tamei, and 33 days she's tar, no matter what. But no matter, even if she sees dam, she's tar. And for a girl, it's 2 weeks tamei and 66 days tar. That's called the Yesheves Adam tar. So the night that she's done with those days, it's called the malais. That night, asura l'shamish. She's usher to have tashmish with her husband. Why? Because since she's used to being mishamash al dam toyar, so she may not be cognizant, might be aware of seeing dam. She's not used to that. So how much? Ad kama, for how long? Amarav oina, just for that night. She needs like a little hefsek, a break, and then she goes back to doing regular. Okay, now this memory was said over in the name of Rabbi Yossi Ish Hutzol. So the Gemara says, Tana, who Yosef Ish Hutzol? This Yosef is Ish Hutzol had many names. He was known as Yosef Ish Hutzol. He was Yosef Habavli. He was Isi ben Aryeh, or Isi ben Yehuda, or Isi ben Gamliel, and Isi ben Mahalel. Umashmai, what was actually his name? His name was Isi ben Akavia Shmai. That was actually his name. So why do you have so many different names? Possibly because it was a Shasa Shmad. So he kept changing his name so they shouldn't be able to realize who he is. It's like, you remember when you used to fill out your own visa when you came into Israel? They'd give you that piece of paper, and you had to write your name and your father's name. So the Chevra who were Israeli, or American Israelis, every time they came in, they wrote someone else's name. They wrote a different father's name. So they shouldn't be able to keep track of who they were. That was that. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Tabla, who Rabbi Yitzchak Chakla, who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Ilah, who Rabbi Yitzchak ben Acha, Tishmaita. So when Stam Rabbi Yitzchak, when it comes to halacha, is Rabbi Yitzchak ben Acha, and Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas the Agadita. Stam Rabbi Yitzchak of Agadita is Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas. The simanech, the simon for that is Shimuna Achai Virei. So Rabbi Yitzchak ben Acha and Rabbi Yitzchak ben Pinchas. What do I see from there? Shimuna Achai, the Shmaitza ben Acha. Shimuna Achai. So you see the word Shimu for Shmaitza, that's Achai. That's Rabbi Yitzchak ben Acha. All right. Mitzvah Hashem, we'll continue tomorrow. I think we'll do like a half hour before Mincha. I'll put it on the chat.
Not yet. Tomorrow.